Listen, there are a lot of things that can completely mess up a home sale transaction, but a buyer's agent should not be one of those things. And yet, without even really knowing that they are killing the deal, a lot of times buyer's agents are the cause of a transaction completely falling apart. And the worst part about it is that the buyers may not even know that their agent did what they did. In fact, to be completely honest, I almost fell into this category a few years back, but luckily I caught myself and I did learn a valuable lesson. I'm going to tell you that story as well as some other examples so you know what to look out for and the questions to ask your agent so this doesn't happen to you, because it is a real problem. So let's dive right in. Before I tell you my story, take a listen to Glenda Baker. She's a real estate agent out of Atlanta, Georgia, who I follow on Instagram and TikTok. I really like her. She's a straight shooter and she just tells it like it is. So take a listen and then we'll talk about it.
I said, hey, I want to show 123 Banana Street on Saturday at 12 o'clock. We negotiate the offer. They come to do the inspection. She doesn't come to the inspection. And I said, hey, this is a very special kind of roof. My client is meticulous about this house. I will have the roofer who installed it come out, take a look at it. She is insistent that her roofer come out, to the point that it's insulting to the seller because the seller feels like his integrity is being questioned. So he says, you know what? I'm done. Kill the deal. He gets so upset, he calls the buyer directly. And the buyer says, I have no idea what you're talking about. She created a problem that wasn't a problem, almost killed the deal. The deal stays together. Do I think that that agent earned her money on that transaction? Absolutely not.
So you can see that this buyer's agent didn't listen to Glenda, who was a seller's agent, did what she wanted to do without conferring with her clients. So here's the deal, and this may irritate some real estate agents out there if they're watching this. We are not the decision makers, period. I don't care if you think that you know what's best for your clients. It is not okay, and it can cause major problems. The worst of them, you can actually kill the deal, and your buyer may never even know what actually happened. Here's another situation that I just read about on Reddit that completely confirms everything I'm talking about. The sellers had bought a fixer-upper and over the course of 5 years had done a lot of work on the house. They were now under contract with a buyer until the buyer's agent's actions completely ruined the transaction and killed the deal. The seller said that the buyer's agent inundated her listing agent with questions about whether everything they did had been permitted. She said the agent had no basis for all her questions, as only one of the items on her list of 10 items actually required a permit, which they had. The other things on the list were either cosmetic or minor that anyone would know did not require a permit. In fact, the seller's husband is a licensed contractor and is very much aware of what requires a permit. The buyer's agent then goes on to say that she's going to call the local building inspector to ask him if the other 10 items required a permit. She said she wouldn't disclose the address that she was talking about, but the seller knows it's a small town and there's only a few houses on the market, so the inspector would clearly be able to figure it out. We should not have had to worry as we had done everything correctly, but experience has taught us asking a building inspector if you need a permit, usually they will say yes, even if the law says no. And not wanting to open a can of worms, I told my agent to just tell this buyer this is not the house for them. The listing agent had accompanied the showing and she told the seller that the buyer didn't even seem to care about any of these issues. It was just the buyer's agent sticking her nose in. Once again, this is the agent making decisions for her buyer. I'm not saying her intentions were bad, but you need to take direction from your clients, not insert your own feelings into the situation. If she had discussed this with her buyer first and her buyer asked her to call a local building inspector, then it would be completely different. But doing something on your client's behalf without your clients even knowing what you're doing can cause major problems. All right, so here's my story. And like I said, it happened a long time ago, but I will never forget it. I learned a valuable lesson that day. I represented the buyer in a transaction. We had done the inspection and it had come back with some stuff. I honestly don't remember what else it said, but one thing I do remember is that it said there were evidence of mice in the attic. Now, mice are pretty common around here. I'm in Maryland, right outside the DC area, especially in the winter. But I know that mice droppings that are found in the insulation in the attic can be dangerous. All you gotta do is look it up. You can get really sick from mouse droppings. Even if you don't see or touch the droppings, they are still a health risk. Mouse droppings can contaminate your home's air, surfaces, and food, leading to various diseases. So I asked a listing agent if I could bring some guys in to get an estimate of what it would cost to remediate the mice issue in the attic. He knew it could cost thousands of dollars depending on the extent of the infestation, the size of the attic, and especially the additional services that might be required. Before asking the seller or even answering my request, he asked me one question. Is this you asking, or is this your client? I will never forget it. It was seriously an aha moment for me. I realized what he was doing, and I thanked him immediately, and I told him I would get back to him. I spoke to my clients, and I asked them if they had any concerns about the droppings found in the attic after looking at the inspection report, and if they wanted me to further investigate it. They said no. They had dealt with mice before, and they knew how to handle it. No big deal. The transaction went through, and they are still happily living in their dream home. I could have seriously jeopardized the deal if I had angered the seller by bringing in contractors to get estimates, and it would have been all for nothing. And now, with buyers agents feeling that they need to prove their worth even more after the NAR settlements, I think we may see more of this intrusive behavior. All with good intentions, but ultimately possibly very damaging. So do yourself a favor if you are using a buyer's agent, or a listing agent for that matter. Have the conversation with them about discussing everything with you first. Use this video as an example of what can happen if they take matters into their own hands without your consent. Do not let your agent take the wheel and have you pay the price. Here are some more tips to prevent this from happening to you. Number 1, set communication boundaries upfront. When you start working with an agent, specify that no decisions, big or small, should be made without your direct approval. Make it clear that you expect to be consulted on every step of the process. Explicitly put it in writing if possible, even in an email, to reinforce your expectation for a collaborative decision-making process. Number 2, request detailed updates. Insist on regular updates regarding negotiations, offers, and any communication with the seller or their agent. Make it clear that you want to be looped in for every action that involves you or impacts the deal. You want the play-by-play, not just the highlight. Number 3, require confirmation before every move. Ask for a policy where the agent must confirm decisions with you directly before any action. This step-by-step confirmation policy puts you in the driver's seat, preventing the agent from moving forward on anything that hasn't been reviewed and approved. Number 4, get copies of all communications. If possible, request to be CC'd on emails or to receive copies of any major communications with the seller side. This transparency helps you stay fully informed and makes it harder for the agent to make calls on your behalf without your knowledge. Number 5, make your decision-making expectations official. In some cases, you might consider adding an addendum to the buyer-agent agreement, specifying that no decisions will be made without direct consent. This move may be a bit formal, but it establishes a solid foundation for the agent to work within your comfort zone. Number 6, consider an agent change if needed. If an agent has made a decision for you without consultation, they may have a style that's just not compatible with yours. If it's early in the process and the relationship feels shaky, consider interviewing other agents who will respect your approach to decision making. Number 7, verify the agent's experience and style. Before committing to an agent, ask about their typical client interaction and decision making process. Look for signs that they prioritize client consultation rather than moving ahead unilaterally. The right agent should clearly respect and encourage client involvement. And finally, trust but verify for real. Even after all these steps, keep a close eye on every aspect of the deal. Real estate is too an important investment to rely on assumptions. Check in regularly, review the documents thoroughly, and keep conversations ongoing so there's no room for an agent to veer off script. I know these tips may sound extreme, but keeping these safeguards in place makes it much harder for an agent to act without your input, helping you avoid any surprise decisions that could derail and ruin your deal. Even if you don't implement all of them, choose what makes you comfortable and just go with that. And if you missed our video on what you should never say to your buyer's agent, definitely check that out next. It's a good one and I think you're gonna like it. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Bye!